When Marcus first moved into the quiet lakeside neighborhood, he was just looking for peace. A successful engineer, he had saved for years to buy a home where he could enjoy fishing, kayaking, and evenings by the water. The lake was the jewel of the community, and from the moment he arrived, neighbors noticed the confident way he carried himself. Some smiled politely, others whispered. What no one realized was that Marcus hadn't just bought a house, he had also purchased the land rights to the lake itself, including the docks. Every resident used a casually. At first, he kept that detail quiet. He didn't move in to start conflicts, he wanted to settle down. But the HOA board, mostly older families who had lived there for decades, immediately began pressing him with demands. They sent letters about repainting his mailboxes, trimming his hedges to a uniform height, and even replacing the color of his shutters to fit the community standards. Marcus found it odd, he had followed all the rules when he moved in. Still, the letters piled up, each one sounding less like neighborly guidance and more like threats of finesse. Things escalated at the first HOA meeting he attended. Sitting at the long table in the clubhouse, Marcus listened as board members spoke to him with thinly veiled hostility. They questioned why he had chosen this neighborhood, whether he understood the expectations of the community, and then, almost casually, one member suggested that perhaps the HOA should assume control of the lake and docks for easier management. Marcus stayed calm, but a slow fire burned inside him. He knew exactly what they didn't. Those docks, that water, every inch of shoreline they wanted to control was legally his. The deeds were clear. The HOA, for all its arrogance, had no authority there. He smiled politely, thanked them for their suggestions, and left the meeting without a fight. That night, looking out over the calm lake as the moon reflected on the surface, Marcus decided he wouldn't let the bullying slide forever. The HOA thought they were dealing with another neighbor they could push around. But soon, they learned that the lake they loved so much didn't belong to them, it belonged to him. And when the time was right, he trimmed them of that in a way they wouldn't forget. The weeks after that first HOA meeting grew tense. Marcus tried to keep to himself, focusing on fishing at dawn and kayaking in the evenings, but the HOA wasn't satisfied. They seemed determined to break him in. Every few days, another letter arrived, this time about his lawn being too unnatural, or his driveway not blending in with the neighborhood aesthetic. Some neighbors avoided eye contact, whispering behind curtains, while others openly stared as if waiting for him to fail. Then comes the boldest move yet. Without asking, the HOA announced a new lake maintenance fee, demanding every resident pay into a fund for dock repairs and shoreline upkeep. Flyers were slipped into mailboxes, and the message was clear: Marcus would be expected to contribute like everyone else. When he didn't respond, two board members showed up at his doorstep. Mr. Williams, one of them began, arms crossed, you'll need to submit your payment by the end of the week. We can't have freeloaders using community property. Marcus raised an eyebrow but stayed calm. Community property. Which property is that, exactly? The lake, of course, the man replied, smack. The docks, the water, everything the neighborhood enjoys. Marcus held back a law. They still didn't know. Instead, he said, I'll think about it, and closed the door before they could push further. That night, he pulled out his documents again, the official deeds that clearly stated his ownership of the lake and all access points. It was ironclad. The HOA had been using his property all along without realizing it. And now they were trying to charge him for the privilege. By the next HOA meeting, the pressure had doubled. They announced new restrictions on fishing horse, kayak storage, and even who could invite guests to the docks. Marcus listened quietly, his patience teeming with each word. The arrogance was astonishing. They weren't just trying to control him, Marcus waited for the perfect moment. He knew revealing the truth to a early would only lead to more petty fights. Instead, he let the HOA dig themselves deeper, recording every demand, every letter, every so-called thing they issued against him. By now, the board was convinced they had him cornered, and their arrogance grew with each passing week. The breaking point came when Marcus returned from work one evening to find bright red stickers plastered on his mailbox and front door, and no complaint. The HOA had also posted a notice declaring that the docks would be temporarily closed until all residents paid the new maintenance fees. That night, neighbors gathered at the clubhouse, some angry, others confused. Whispers spread that Marcus was refusing to cooperate, and the blame for the lake fell squarely on him. Enough was enough. Marcus showed up at the meeting, carrying a thick folder under his arm. The board members smirked as he walked in, certain they were about to humiliate him. Mr. Williams, the HOA president sneered, until you pay your fees and comply with our regulations, you will not be allowed to use the lake or docks. Rules are rules. The room fell quiet as Marcus placed the folder on the table and slid it forward. Actually, he said, his voice steady but sharp, rules only rules if you have the authority to enforce them. And as of right now, you don't. He opened the folder, revealing stamped deeds, signed contracts, and county records. Gasps rippled through the crowd as he explained. The lake, the shoreline, the docks, all were on land he legally owned. The HOA had no jurisdiction, no power, and no right to collect a single dollar in fees. One board member tried to interrupt, but Marcus raised his hand. For months, you've threatened fined even tried to publicly shame all while trespassing on my property. I've been patient, but that ends tonight. From this point forward, if anyone wants to use my docks or set foot on my shoreline, they'll need my permission. Not yours. The silence that followed was thick. Neighbors looked around in shock, some glaring at the board, others whispering in disbelief. The smug expressions on the board members' faces had vanished, replaced with pale, tight-lipped fear. Marcus stood tall, his gaze sweeping the room. You thought you could push him out. Instead, you just lost control of the very thing that makes this neighborhood valuable. The lake isn't yours, it is mine. And with that, he left the room, leaving the HOA scrambling in chaos and the community stunned. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone knew it. They were trying to control property they didn't even own. In the weeks that followed Marcus' revelation, the entire neighborhood seemed to turn upside down. The HOA board scrambled to do damage control, but the threat had spread too far. Homeowners were furious. They had been paying fees for years under the illusion that the HOA controlled the lake, when in reality, they had been trespassing on Marcus' property without his consent. Some neighbors confronted the board, demanding refunds. Others turned to Marcus directly, suddenly treating him with a respect they had never shown before. The board, however, wasn't ready to surrender. They tried intimidation first, claiming Marcus' documents must be outdated or misinterpreted. When that failed, they attempted to negotiate, offering him a token payment to sign over rights to the lake. Marcus rejected them flatly. You tried to push him out of this community, he said. Now you want him to drive up the one thing that protects him. Not a chance. Soon, the horsepower crumbled. They had no legal standing to enforce lake rules, no leverage over the docks, and no way to bully Marcus anymore. Homeowners began honoring their letters and treaties, siding with Marcus instead. The owners feared board found themselves ridiculed and powerless as their arrogance exposed for what it was. Marcus, however, didn't let bitterness guide him. He surprised everyone by taking a fair approach. He announced that all residents could continue to use the lake, but under his rules, not the HOA's. There would be no arbitrary fees, no bogus fees, and no harassment. Instead, he set simple, reasonable guidelines: respect the property, clean up after yourself, and treat neighbors kindly. The community flourished under this new arrangement. Families gathered by the docks again. Kids light as they jumped into the water, and neighbors who once whispered about Marcus now waved and greeted him warmly. The very thing the HOA tried to weaponize became the foundation of unity, and Marcus became not just a homeowner, but the protector of the lake and the peace it brought. As for the HOA board, they shrank into obscurity. Their meetings reduced to a handful of bitter members clinging to what little influence they had left. But no one listened anymore. The neighborhood had found a new balance, one that favored fairness over control. And every evening, as Marcus sat on his porch watching the sun set over the water, he couldn't help but smile. They had tried to break him, but instead, they handed him the power to change everything. The lake wasn't just his property, it was his victory. When the meeting ended, one board member leaned close and muttered, "If you can't follow our rules, maybe this isn't the right neighborhood for you." Marcus left without responding, but his decision was made. He wasn't going to let them bully him another day. The time was coming when he would put the HOA in their place, and when he did, the entire community would see who really held the power by the lake.